Hi, everyone. It's good to be with you again. And yesterday I met with my two little disciples. And of course, we talked about the coming Sunday, which is the story of Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead. So I can't believe that we're so close to Easter. We're getting there. And so all in all, I just want to share what we did with the lesson yesterday. And if you remember last week, I kind of left the lesson, and this is a good thing I think sometimes we need to do if something feels not right or it's missing. And I shared with you that the gospel of Jesus, where Jesus heals the blind man since birth, he's blind since birth, at near Siloam, the pool. And I felt with the children, for little ones, it's one thing. You could talk about Jesus, does this, but, obviously the gospel has much more meaning to it than just Jesus heals the blind man. It's about the blindness we have, and whether we're not listening or we're not seeing it or we don't, whatever. So I started the opening prayer yesterday. Instead of just doing spontaneous prayer, we opened up with, it's a video with the lyrics, because I like them to read the lyrics too. Open My Eyes, Lord, from Jesse Manabusen. And we just sat with it. And then we discussed it. What does it mean to have your eyes open? What does it mean? What is it you're supposed to be seeing? Or what are you supposed to be hearing? And how are we supposed to be loving? And they were pretty deep. I mean, I was pleasantly surprised. I don't want to take them for granted, but every once in a while they come up with something. Again, they're thinking, and it was meaningful for them. And what I liked about this is, we've heard this song in church before. I said, okay, another connection. Connections are really important. So it was a nice version, and they sat there, and I said, well, let's just talk about last week's gospel again. And what do you remember about it? And then we went over review. They had, because they're doing the venture, the 5th grade level, there was an assignment at the end to kind of fill in the words about the Apostles' Creed. And if you're doing it with younger children now, someday you're going to be doing this as they get older, and how important it is for them to understand that the creed, and they had to do a fill-in. And I was sharing with them when I was directing a graduate program in religious education, I was okay with the course that was there already on religious issues for religious educators. But I was at Mass one Sunday, and people standing up professing, I should say, the creed. And I'm wondering, do they really know what this means? Do they do? So I changed that course. We just did the Apostles' Creed because it was the first and it was the shortest and we could get into it. And each week took another tenet, like who is God for you one week? Who is Jesus for you? Who is the Holy Spirit? And gave them assignments accordingly. I just think we, like with prayers, sometimes we just don't get into the deeper meaning, going into the deep with it. So that was good for them. And listening about that catechumens will receive the copy of the creed. And I was also happy to learn that the family's planning to join me at the Easter Vigil this year, which I'm thrilled about. So we'll see. I really hope they end up doing that, because so much of this will come alive for them while we're there. So we proceeded into lesson, and there was a heavy story for these older children about the Holocaust. And but they got it, and one only had heard of it already. And I just think it was important. It was really well done in the program. And we dealt with the questions, and we dealt with, what children went through then and how we need to pray for children today who suffer. So we got into that whole conversation. And then we talked about compassion, and because it's such a quality of Jesus, that's something that we should have. And what does that mean? So we kind of broke down that meaning, and who do they know who's compassionate? When have they ever seen it in their little lives? Who's been compassionate, not even necessarily to them, but for other people as well. So that was good. The gospel this week is the story that's coming up about Martha and Mary and the raising of Lazarus from the dead. And which only brings us closer to Easter. This is the last miracle story that we will hear until Jesus' resurrection. So it's a precursor, really. As always, the gospel scriptures always has more levels of meaning other than the literal meaning. And talking about Lazarus and what that might have been like, someone who died and Jesus comes and they had questions. And from the reading, in terms of why didn't Jesus just rush there? His friend was dying. Why did he wait? And the purpose, of course, was to let him die so that the impact of his rising would have been much more. And as Jesus says, I'm doing this so to glorify the Father. Wanted people to understand that. And Jesus prayed. The gospel is full. It's full of so many things happening. You could take pieces. You could spend a week just on this gospel. And it's just all the meanings and all the happenings and the weeping. And Jesus is not only weeping for his friend, but scripture scholars will tell us that he's weeping for what's coming down the road for him. I'm sure he wept many times. I'm sure his frustration levels were worn at times. So that's why his constant connection to the Father and always in prayer. We see that a lot. After we discussed it, we discussed the gospel, but then there was an opportunity to act it out. And this is the first time we've ever done this, where the children acted out the gospel. And there's two of them. And of course, there were a couple of more characters other than two. So they doubled up. And what I could have done, and I don't know why I didn't do it, there are the people floating around the house at the time, the older siblings, and I should have grabbed one of them and said, could you please, I'll do it the next time. I didn't want them to feel, I don't know how I wanted them to feel, but it might have been nice to have, or fun even, I don't know if fun is the word, to have someone else come in and be a part of it. At least they could learn. They could have been the narrator. But they did it and they really enjoyed it. And the thing is a change up. It was a change up for the same old, which is good. The kids like it. Can we do this all the time with the gospel now? They ask me. So, well, maybe we will. We could do it often and sometimes we won't, but it might be good to do that. And I have them reading the gospel before we even meet. So they're familiar with the gospel already. They have an idea of what's going to be happening. So they could tell you, when I walk in the door. So this week's gospel, Grandma, is about X, Y, and Z. So I may have them play it out a little bit. And their mom was home yesterday and she was like, what was going on? I could hear them. And they're, it was really funny. I mean, it's not funny. It was funny. But to watch them do this, I didn't laugh, although I was chuckling inside. But they were really trying hard to be Lazarus rising from the dead or be Mary and Martha, and they're crying and my daughter-in-law said, what was going on there? I said, well, they're reenacting the resurrection of Lazarus from the dead. Don't ask me questions, but just think about it. But she said, oh my God, it just sounded so alive. I said, it was very alive. So at the end, what we did, we prayed the Psalm. We haven't really gotten into the Psalms a lot. And I think the Psalms are so important, especially following from last week, the story of King David, who we're told is the author of the Psalms. So I really wanted to get into Psalms. I love the Psalms. I find them a great source for prayer. And so we read Psalm 130, which will be prayed this coming Sunday as well, verses 1 through 8. And it's about mercy. And then we discussed a little bit about mercy. So the end, what I did, I found this song and it, I figured, even though they're in 5th grade, I don't want them to be treated as mini adults yet. I mean, they're dealing pretty good, but maybe we could do something shifted. And let me see, test the waters and see where they're at. So I came across a song. It's called the Lazarus Song. It's obviously for younger children, which if you are teaching younger children, it's great. And you can just get onto YouTube and, do Lazarus and children's song. And it's called the Lazarus Song. And it has a catchy little tune. And they listened and they have the lyrics and and it was over. I said, what do you think? Grandma, it really is for younger children. I said, yeah, but didn't you find you're humming the tune. So was it catchy? Yeah, but so in September, this would have been, oh, we love it. So maybe that marks a sign of their own maturity as well. So next week, we are going to be talking about Palm and Passion Sunday, which I still can't believe it's coming so quickly. And it'll be heavy duty. But we started to talk about Easter a little bit and preparing. And again, I think they're going to want to do the go to the vigil, and I think that will be explained. I'll have a lot of explaining to do, you know. One thing that I used for my children, you may be familiar with this, and I just wanted to share this with you, or if you're teaching younger children now, or if you haven't heard about it, I bought these again for my grandchildren when they were little. These are called resurrection eggs, okay? And what they are is that they have each egg, it represents the whole carton, actually represents Holy Week. All right, here they come. They look just like eggs, right? And they're colored. All right. But in each egg, when you open it up, and you could do this during the week, they can do it during the week of either Holy Week, or they themselves can just do it all at once if you want to teach them, put them in order. So for example, here is a little tiny spear of what went through, what was happening to Jesus when he was hanging on the cross, when the blood and the water came out. And you can do that with them. I would recommend they learn the story or the passage, be familiar with that before they even start with this, because then it makes sense. We have the burial cloth. I mean, they're all in here. You can get them on Amazon, but what's really cool is in here, the white egg. All right, Easter Sunday, empty. All right, the tomb is empty. So it might be just a cute little thing to do, help them to understand. And my kids still remember doing this. I mean, they're like their parents themselves, and they say, "Oh, remember those resurrection eggs?" So I'll do that again with them, even though it's kind of youngish. The older kids liked it. They did last year, so we'll, you know, oh, we remember doing that. Yeah, that was really cool. Go figure. But it was something, I think something we should keep in, especially for the younger children, helps them. Anything that's visual like that sometimes really cements the remembrance. So that was this week. That was yesterday. And so I will be with you next week. We'll talk about how we did with the Passion and Palm Sunday. It's kind of, you know, rolled together, but as we know, and as we come to the end of Lent. So I hope you have a good week, and that your Lent continues to be fruitful and grace-filled. And we'll see you next Tuesday, or next week, I should say. Take care. Bye-bye.